What's up, dudes? Max here, back with an opportunity to talk to you guys about something that I very much have been wanting to talk about for quite some time, and it's the fact that I got to play Monster Hunter World. Over a week or so ago, I took an opportunity to fly up to the Capcom offices to play the Gamescom build of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and capture some footage, and they surprised me with something I was definitely not expecting, the first public playable demo of Monster Hunter World. So of course I jumped right in and I got a bunch of footage to show you guys, and I kind of want to give you my impressions. A quick reminder, this footage is being rendered at 4K to make it look as good as possible as it can on YouTube as a platform. So if you want it to look great, if not the best it can look on YouTube, put this thing up to 2160p or 4K in the quality options. It's worth it, I guarantee you. Now, to quickly cover things, I am anything but a Monster Hunter expert. The only Monster Hunter game I played avidly, or if not more than any of the others, was Monster Hunter on PlayStation 2 that required the network adapter to play online. The game was clunky, it was rough, I played it for at least a few days, and then I just kind of felt it wasn't for me. The entire design, the entire aesthetic of Monster Hunter, which is like bone and wood and crafting and all this kind of stuff that composes the UI and the elements and the overall feel of Monster Hunter, I never really got into it. It always felt like the Flintstones meets really cool monster hunting guys, and I was never a big fan of it. However, the feel was a lot different in the trailers that was being presented for Monster Hunter World, which is where I had a bit of an interest right at the start. Even some of the things that were being presented in the trailers looked like it had technology. It looked like it was a mixture of something like Lost Planet 2 and Monster Hunter, which I very much enjoy because Lost Planet 2 is, in my opinion, one of the best co-op games out there, and is fantastic. It's also, for the most part, very much a monster hunting style game with guns and a third-person perspective. But being a person that is huge into Phantasy Star Online, that loves the whole aspect of 4 players go into an instant zone and fight things and get loot and trade with each other and do all that kind of stuff, you would think that Monster Hunter would be absolutely up my alley, but it is because of those little nitpicky reasons where it feels like Flintstones meets Phantasy Star Online. That kind of stuff really deterred me from liking any of the other versions of the game, not to mention the fact that the graphics of Monster Hunter always have felt to be kind of important to me, and the games have always kind of resembled to be PlayStation 2 games, if not a little bit more upgraded beyond that with the Wii version of Monster Hunter as well. So what I'm getting at, all of that changed when I saw the trailer for Monster Hunter World, them actually putting it on a gameplay engine that's something different than what they had before, building from the ground up and going for a game that is going to be a lot different than the previous Monster Hunters. At least that's what I'm getting out of it. So let's quickly talk about what I experienced in this demo as we start hunting some stuff down. What I was playing was a gameplay demo from the Capcom offices that was technically online with 4 people hooked up to systems at the same time. The cool part about this is that it gave me an understanding of how the matchmaking is going to work, how the congregation of players is going to be functioning in Monster Hunter, and the fact that the zones and things that were kind of cumbersome about the previous games are now gone, where the world is this big, vast, open thing that you can kind of discover and explore and look for monsters. They're not bound by zone limitations anymore, which is very refreshing. And it also seems that once you're in this instant situation where you have all 4 of your hunters running around looking for the monster and fighting monsters, there is something beyond that. There is something of a hub or something that was described that will be where you talk to other people to focus and coordinate your efforts as far as what you want to do for a quest, and then you go out into the instance world and go beat stuff up. Again, very similar to Phantasy Star Online. I know a ton of games have done this since then. PSO is one of the first online games I've ever played, so my influence is heavily based around that. But the one thing I definitely appreciate about the new Monster Hunter, like I was saying before, it feels a lot like Lost Planet and Monster Hunter merged together. There's technology, the overall aesthetic of the game has changed, and it just really feels like there's a lot of influence from other Capcom games like Lost Planet, especially when you start going through some of the clothing options. I swear there was like a Lost Planet pirate guy's helmet that was in there, which I thought to be kind of awesome. So the Capcom reps started up a quest. I was essentially just following along. The footage you're seeing is actually not me. I was playing under Hunter 1, which is a much different moveset and everything like that. The character I had was essentially like a hammer slash giant greatsword type of weapon, which could transform and then would get additional bonuses and effects depending on how many attacks you landed. Like I said, not a Monster Hunter expert. This might be old stuff, but that's what I was running into. While the stuff you're seeing right here might be a little bit more focused and the people know exactly what's going on with the hunt, I was kind of just running around doing special moves and attacks, beating stuff up, and following where the monster goes. But at the start of a mission, there is no monster. You do have to start piecing together little bits and clues and trails and tracks as far as where the monster is going to be, because it appears that it can be in several different parts of this open world or large map that is available to you. From what we did play, like I said, there's no zones at all. There's no zoning or dezoning or anything like that. It was essentially down to us following these glowing flies that pretty much went in different paths, and as we were communicating with each other where they were going, some people ran into dead ends, other people ran into some things that led to other monsters, the ones that we were not looking for, and it seemed like this one was specifically going towards where we needed to be, so we all started following that one person, and the flies started taking us in that direction where the monster was asleep, and we started beating the hell out of it. The combat doesn't feel a lot different from what I remember of other Monster Hunter games. Very weighted, very rooted is what it feels like, especially when you're carrying a very large sword. But the nice thing, and one of the best aspects, is that the things that are still really focused as far as being tight and responsive are dodge mechanics. So when you dodge in a certain direction, which is where you primarily use to get out of the way of being bitten by these things, it works pretty damn good, and I was relatively happy with it. I've been playing a lot of Souls series games over the last while, and it felt fairly similar to that. So you were able to very much tell that the monster has a very telling attack that goes right before, and then you get the hell out of the way, and that was all very much preserved. The cool thing is that we brought the monster down to a different area where it could be trapped by other things like snares and vines, and one of the developers was getting a vine prepared or trying to get the monster baited over to it, and it totally got stuck in this thing, which is a really damn cool moment, as it was trapped in these vines and we were whacking at it like crazy. There's other moments where the monster goes through transformation processes where it essentially starts limping or not really featuring the same moveset as it had when we first ran into it, which was really cool to see, the fact that the monster goes through transformations as the fight goes on, much less it starts running in different directions similar to other games. But this time you actually have to actively track the thing down. One of the situations was it brought us into a cave, and there was a whole bunch of these other like raptor-style monsters around that we had to fight at the same time. So that was kind of like, well, what do we do now? Like, there's all these other monsters around. Some person had to take the ads, and one person had to take the big guy, and that was pretty cool. There was even other moments where we went to a giant canopy area in the sky where the ground wasn't stable. When the monster would jump on the ground, it would cause a rippling bouncing effect where all the players would kind of get jittered and out of place and lose their balance, and you had to focus on when you were attacking the monster, when it was attacking you, and to not be in that area because the monster seemed to go to that spot primarily to get the hunters off of him, which was a nice touch. The monsters do seem pretty damn smart in the game right now, but the thing that I was liking the most is that the attacks felt responsive when I did hit. I did absolutely understand when the attacks were striking and if they were doing damage. There was really big hit sparks and blood and effects, which is very nice to see. All I want to know is that I'm doing damage with whatever sword I'm using. And many other situations like Monster Hunter using whetstones to resharpen your blades and making sure you have ample food to heal yourself as you're going to be taking damage. All that stuff seems to be very much preserved. And Monster Hunter World in its current state leaves me in a situation where I just really want to play more, especially from those trailers, and now that I've actually gotten to touch the game in some physical form, I am actively looking forward to this game coming out, and I'm glad it's going to be early 2018. It seems like they've been working on this thing a lot, because I believe the hardware we were playing on was PlayStation 4 Pros, and you can tell by the frame rate on screen, it's not quite hitting 60 all the time, but it is 60 for a good amount of it. It's mostly like between 30 and 60, so I do hope that gets ironed out for the console version, because the PC version isn't coming till quite a bit later from what I understand, and that is just a good thing for them to target. The fact that this game is going to be 60 frames per second and responsive, and it's an action game, it's an RPG, is just exactly the way it should be, and I hope the game could get a pretty solid, at least close to 60 when it does eventually come out. The only gripe I would technically say throughout the entire experience was pretty much the lock-on system and the camera. I didn't fully understand how to really manage the camera too well when the fights were happening, especially with focusing the lock-on on the specific target and making the camera go in one direction. It seemed to kind of go in certain other directions, so I'm only assuming that's going to be ironed out. I let the Capcom folks know about it, that the toughest part of it was managing the camera and trying to get that to work in a way that would always be responsive and allow me to see the things that I really want to see. And one of the cooler moments was that other enemies on the battlefield will actually take part in the fight. Like I said with like the raptor type monsters earlier, there was a moment where I jumped towards a bird and this pterodactyl style creature like grabbed me and took me up into the mountain. And I'm like, I don't know where I'm going, guys, but I'll see you next time. It essentially carried me up the entire mountain, and what it seemed to do was actually put me in a path where the monster was going to go. So I don't know if that's a thing where this is kind of designed to be this way. If you grab a pterodactyl, you can sort of cut the monster off at the pass. That's a pretty cool thing if so, but I really don't have any information in terms of that's what it does. It was just kind of a cool moment. It seemed out of control, just like the world does feel, which is a very cool thing. It feels like the world in Monster Hunter World is abrasive, it's violent, and it's out of control, and it's always there to get you with a lot of monsters all over the place, and it definitely has a much different feel than the other games, which is what I liked the most, especially considering the fact that the previous Monster Hunter games seem to be focused around the monsters especially. It's just around the monsters and getting the gear, putting the gear on you, getting better gear, going out, repeating the same process over and over again, which is a great formula and it's fun, but the world itself wasn't really great looking due to hardware limitations, and I'm not really a huge fan of it until this game where you finally see the differences and how the technology affects the hunters and the fact that the world is detailed and lush and vibrant, and it could possibly look even better when the game comes out. And that's the stuff that has me potentially the most excited for Monster Hunter World when it arrives in early 2018. I'll be back with more updates as soon as possible. If I get a chance to play more Monster Hunter World, I will let you guys know. But until then, thank you dudes a ton for watching. If you liked the video, I definitely appreciate a thumbs up. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.